Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. The play-in tournament has just wrapped up as I'm recording this video. Yes, it ended with my Oklahoma City Thunder getting blown out by the Minnesota Timberwolves, but it was an amazing season for us and we will be back. So as heartbroken as I am, it is time to look forward to the NBA playoffs. And the bracket that we have set up is incredible. There are so many great first-round matchups, some not so great ones, but overall, I think some of the matchups we're going to see as we continue to go through this bracket are just going to be incredible. There are so many evenly matched teams, so many fun storylines that we'll get into as well. And in today's video, I'm going to go ahead and predict the entire playoff bracket, every single series, how many games each series goes, and an eventual NBA champion and finals MVP. Just warning, I'm still not sold on some of these picks. I just have to get this video out because the playoffs start literally tomorrow as I'm recording this. It's 2:32 a.m. here, so technically it starts today here on the East Coast. This video will probably get to you around noon, right before the game start, about an hour before. So I don't have a lot of time to go ahead and think about this. So I'm going to go ahead and just make my picks off my gut reactions. I'll try and explain each one as we go as well. But before we get started, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. It helps the channel out a ton. Also, comment down below who is your NBA champion and finals MVP right now before any of the playoffs start, so you can go ahead and if you get it right, say that you called it here in these comments and you've got some proof of it. So we're going to start off going from the Western Conference. We're going to go round one, round two conference finals to the NBA Finals. And we're going to begin with this Denver Nuggets versus Minnesota Timberwolves series. Oh, by the way, if you want this website, it's the NBA Bracket Challenge. If you Google that, it'll come right up. It also has kind of a percentage prediction here that people have made. 89% of people are picking the Nuggets. It says 0% are picking the Timberwolves, so I don't know how that math works. But yeah, the Nuggets are going to win this series. I don't think it'll take too long. I do think the Timberwolves match up decently with the Nuggets. They have the bigs to maybe slow Jokic a little bit, particularly Gobert. However, there's that famous meme where Gobert was like, oh, I got Jokic, I'll guard him. And Jokic is like, I have like 40-something points. I don't think Gobert is going to be able to stop Jokic. I don't think they have the perimeter defense, the Timberwolves, to slow down the immense amount of shooters that this Nuggets team does have. Losing Jaden McDaniels was a massive blow to this team's hopes of pulling off any substantial upset or even winning in that initial 7-8 matchup with the Los Angeles Lakers. And so ultimately, I think Denver gets this done pretty quickly. I'm going to go 5 games. I do think that the Timberwolves could potentially take a game here because they do have Anthony Edwards, Cat, Gobert. It's a solid squad. I just don't think they have enough to really take more than a game from Denver. And Denver moves on to the second round, where they will face the winner of this Phoenix Suns versus Clippers series. That would have potentially been the best series of the first round if not for the injury to Paul George, which, according to some reports, is supposed to keep him out for the entirety of this matchup, which is a real big bummer because if PG was in it, I think this is a back-and-forth 7-game series where either team could come out on top. PG would give the Clippers another defender to throw at Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, this high-powered offense that the Suns have. But unfortunately, without him, I just don't think that they can keep up defensively or even offensively. It's going to be up to Kawhi Leonard to be an absolute robot to even take a couple games from this Phoenix Suns team. And I think he will. It's Kawhi Leonard. He'll take at least one game. But beyond that, it's going to be impossible. They do have a lot more depth than the Suns, so maybe that also plays a factor. But this Suns team, I think, is just really, really good, even though they only got 8 games with Kevin Durant on the roster before the postseason begins. It's still Kevin Durant, it's Devin Booker, it's Chris Paul, it's DeAndre Ayton. This team is really good. Monty Williams is a great head coach. They don't have the most depth in the world, but I think they have enough pieces to definitely get out of this series pretty quickly. I'm going to go 6 games. I do think Kawhi Leonard has enough talent to push this beyond a 5-game series. Plus, like I said, with some of the depth that the Clippers do have, I think ultimately they give the Suns a little bit of a tougher series than they would like. But without Paul George, I would be stunned if the Clippers ended up taking this one over Phoenix. Next, we've got Sacramento versus Golden State. This is a series that I made a whole video on, so if you want to see me breaking this down in depth, go ahead and check out that video. And I think I'm going to stick with my prediction from that video. I believe in that one. I went with Golden State in 7, and I'm going to stick with that here as well. I like Sacramento. If there's one team in the West I want to see make a deep run, it is the Sacramento Kings. I would love to see them prove everybody wrong, I guess me included here, because I'm picking the Warriors to win. But I feel like not many people are giving the Kings at all of a chance. This is a really good team, even if the defense is a bit shaky. Offensively, they are dynamic in every facet of that word. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis will both end up on all NBA teams. Kings. They've got elite 40% plus shooters around them, a high-level spark plug off the bench in Malik Monk. They've got the Coach of the Year, Mike Brown, who will probably win it unanimously. This is a great team. Plus, having home court advantage against a Warriors team that has struggled on the road is also pretty key. Maybe Golden State doesn't get out of this one. Like I said, picking it in 7, I could see the Kings winning this series. So Kings fans, I'm sorry, I'm picking against y'all. Although me with the Cone Curse, maybe this is a good thing for y'all. But I am going to take the defending champion Golden State Warriors to make it out of the first round. I also think Andrew Wiggins coming back is huge. Having him and GP2 will help get rid of some of their defensive issues, which I do expect to still show up later on, spoiler alert, in this playoff run for them. They're going to have to figure out how to overcome that. But I do think the Kings really don't have anyone to stop Steph Curry. The offense will be enough. It'll be a shootout of a series that I do believe the Golden State Warriors will end up winning. Next, Memphis versus LA. This is another one that people are really split on. A lot of people think that the Lakers are a dark horse championship contender. The Grizzlies are dealing with 2 massive injuries to their front court in Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, who would be huge in helping to try and slow down Steven Adams. LeBron James attacking the interior as well. And I do think that missing those 2 guys is going to make this a pretty long series. I think it goes 6 or 7 games regardless of who wins. I made a whole video also on this one breaking it down, and I do think I'm also going to stick with my prediction in that one. And I'm going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies in 7 games, winning this one at home. Another 7-game series here in the first round in the Western Conference. Memphis, I still think is just the better team overall. Desmond Bane and John Morant, it's going to be really hard for the Lakers to slow them down whatsoever. LeBron James and AD are incredible, but the Grizzlies have a really good defense. And I think ultimately the defense will be enough to slow them down while also taking advantage of the inconsistency of some of the other role players on that Lakers team. And ultimately the Grizzlies do get the upper hand here. The Lakers are still really well set up going forward. I mean, even you can see here, 53% of people have picked the Lakers to win over the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm going to stick with the top team here. I think the Grizzlies get this thing done. It's going to be a battle, a slugfest. It's going to be a slow, grinded out, physical type of series, but I do expect the Grizzlies to end up coming out on top in 7 games, taking down the Lakers, who many people think can make a deep run in the West. So that's my Western Conference first round, which is very interesting. Unfortunately for the Eastern Conference, it's not as interesting. Milwaukee's going to beat Miami in 4, in my opinion. Jimmy Butler is great. Bam Adebayo is a great defensive big, one of the best in the league. They just don't have much around those guys. I mean, Tyler Hero's solid, but he's inconsistent. Maybe they get a huge game from Jimmy Butler. Bam plays well. You get some high-level shooting from Max Strus. Kyle Lowry plays well, and maybe you steal a game. But beyond that, I don't think they get anything done. I think Milwaukee is very, very, very clearly the better team here. I really don't even think it's close. So I'm going to go ahead and take Milwaukee in a 4-game sweep, the first one that I predicted so far. As for Cleveland versus New York, the last series that I made a video on, this is one that I think could go all the way to 7 games, and I do think it probably will. These are 2 really evenly matched teams. If you want, once again, to hear my full, really in-depth thoughts on this series, like I said, I dropped a full video on it, so make sure to go check that out. But to kind of sum it up, I think the defense of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen down low is going to give Julius Randle a lot of problems. He already struggled to show up in the playoffs a couple years ago. If anything similar happens this year, the Knicks are going to get knocked out pretty quickly. Jalen Brunson is amazing, and when we've seen him in the playoffs in the past, in particular, last season on the Mavericks Western Conference Finals run, he was amazing. And in particular, in the first round against Donovan Mitchell's Utah Jazz. Of course, Spite is over here now in Cleveland, but he's got some big backup. And Darius Garland also at the guard position. Going to be hard to slow that backcourt. Isaac Okoro's looked good recently too. Like I mentioned, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. It's a really solid roster. Their depth isn't great. New York definitely has the beat there, so if they can just kind of wear out those top guys and take advantage of that depth, I think New York could take this series. Whenever I predict something in 6 or 7 games, I believe it could go the either way, but I'm going to still pick Cleveland to win this one in 7 games at home. They're just too talented, and I don't believe that they're going to lose this first round series. The Knicks are also really good, and I do think they have a shot. But ultimately, Cleveland is just the better team. They're also top 10 in offense and defense, which says a lot about how balanced they are. While the Knicks are an amazing offensive team, but defensively, they leave a lot to be desired. And when you're going up against an elite backcourt like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, you can't be weak defensively or it's going to cause a lot of issues. Next, we've got Philly versus Brooklyn, another one that I really just don't think will be very competitive. I'm going to go ahead and pick Philadelphia to win in 5 games. Philly always manages to let whatever team they're playing, they could be playing like the 10-72 Sixers from years past. They would probably still let them somehow take a game in the playoffs. It's just kind of what happens with the Sixers team. Plus, James Harden is still rehabilitating that Achilles injury, so maybe he starts slow coming out of the gate. Nick Claxton is really good. Mikal Bridges is also a phenomenal defender. So I do think this Nets team, they're not going to be a pushover. Even if it's a 5-game, 4-game series, I think they give them a lot of close battles that could have gone either way if a couple more shots fell. But with the way that Joel Embiid has played this season, he's been the MVP in my opinion, and in the opinion of the voters, because he's going to win the award. But he's been one of the best players, if not the best player on the planet most of the season. He's been amazing, and I don't think he's going to let this series go very far. So I am going to go ahead and pick them there. Doc Rivers is also a concern because it feels like whenever a Doc Rivers team goes up against an inferior opponent, they seem to let them hang around or blow some kind of lead. I don't think that's the case in this first round matchup, but it might show up later on. Next, we've got Boston versus Atlanta, another series. Unfortunately, this Eastern Conference first round isn't going to be great, I don't think. Boston is going to destroy Atlanta, in my opinion. I'm going to pick another sweep here. They did show some promise in the play-in game, the Hawks. Trae Young played well. DeJounte Murray looked good. Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu dominated the boards. But the Celtics team is so much more dynamic than that Heat team. That Heat team cannot score almost whatsoever, which is another reason why I'm picking the Bucks to sweep, because that Bucks defense against this Heat offense, they may be lucky to score 90 points some games. But this Boston team was the second best offense in the entire league, as well as the second best defense. They're stacked. They've probably got the best around 8-man rotation in the entire league. They're going to destroy the Atlanta Hawks. It won't be particularly close. I'm taking Boston to win this in 4 games. So those are my first round predictions. Let me know what you think about those in the comments below. And next, let's go ahead and move on to the second round, where I think things get really, really interesting. I could see every one of these 4 predicted second round series going 6 or 7 games and being amazingly close. So we're going to begin at the top with Denver versus Phoenix. This is one that I really hope we get the chance to see. 2 amazing offenses. I feel like Denver in particular is getting a bit underrated by NBA fans. There's a reason they're the 1 seed. They've been almost the entire season. Nikola Jokic is one of the most dynamic offensive players of all time. Jamal Murray, last time we saw him in the playoffs, he was doing things that we basically never seen before, dueling with Donovan Mitchell. Michael Porter Jr. is the definition of knockdown shooter. Same with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a solid 3-and-D wing. Aaron Gordon is an amazing defender and also has taken a leap offensively as well. He was in borderline all-star conversation. They've also got some depth. This is a great team. There are very few flaws on the Nuggets, but one in particular does worry me a bit in a matchup like this, and that's the defense. It's been pretty weak all season, and even when it's looked good, it's been inconsistent. A lot of that does come back to the fact that Jokic isn't really a rim protector, but even outside of him, Michael Porter Jr. isn't a lockdown defender. Jamal Murray isn't a lockdown defender. Their bench doesn't really have any incredible defenders. Now it has guys like Bruce Brown who are solid, but it doesn't have like any elite defenders really across the roster, which is a bit concerning when you're going up against a team like the Phoenix Suns, who are so dynamic offensively. When you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton on the court at the same time, as well as some solid guys off the bench, it's hard to stop that team. In the 8 games where they had Kevin Durant, they had an offensive rating that, if you put it across the entire season, would have been the best in the league, and their defense would have also been one of the best in the league. I believe it would have been top 5. So this team with Kevin Durant in the lineup has looked basically unstoppable, especially on that offensive end. And I think that's where things get really dicey for Denver, because I don't know how they're going to stop this team consistently. It just feels really difficult. Now, you might say, how do the Suns stop the Nuggets? And that is also a very valid question. The Suns don't have a lot of elite defenders on their roster either. But I think overall the Suns are just a bit more well-rounded. I trust in Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and others to get this done. I'm going to pick the Phoenix Suns to win this series in 7 games. I think they go ahead and go into Denver, win it in a 7-game series. That will be really close and tough. But ultimately, they will come out on top over the Denver Nuggets, who do fall in the second round, but I still think give the Suns an incredible fight. And once again, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. Next up, we've got Golden State versus Memphis, which is a rematch of last year's Western Conference semifinals, a series that got really chippy. The fan bases don't like each other. These 2 teams have been looking to play each other again and get this rematch. Last year, the Warriors won, and maybe this is the Grizzlies' chance to get that revenge. However, it's going to be hard. Once again, the front court depth issues due to the injuries to Brandon Clark and Steven Adams are a big concern for this Grizzlies team. Clark is definitely not going to return, and Adams seems unlikely. Now, the Warriors don't have any dominant paint presences, so it's not like they're going to take massive advantage of this weakness, but it is a problem. You need to have great interior defense. You need to have great defense, period, against this Warriors team, and the Grizzlies are a really solid defense. but I worry a bit if Jaren Jackson Jr. gets into foul trouble, all of a sudden the offense can explode for the Warriors. They've got the more experience at the same time, having Wiggins back, Gary Payton II now as defensive anchors on the perimeter. I think that spells a lot of problems for this Grizzlies team. They've got way more weapons to throw at the Grizzlies than the Lakers do. And ultimately, I am going to pick the Golden State Warriors to win in the second round series. I'm going to pick it in a 7-game series once again. Another one that I think could go either way, and if the Grizzlies were fully healthy with Clark and Adams, I think I picked the Grizzlies to come out of this one. I just don't think I can pick against the defending champions when they're going up against a team that is dealing with this many significant injuries. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Grizzlies are able to overcome it. We've seen this Memphis team play well, missing key guys for years now. But ultimately, I think it's just too much that ends up dragging them down, and they once again lose at the hands of the Warriors in the second round. Next, let's flash over to the Eastern Conference, where we have the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, in a series that I think is really fun because this Cavs team almost feels specially built to take down the Milwaukee Bucks. They've got two high-level frontcourt defenders in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, who can probably do a pretty good job of building that wall that you have to stop Giannis in the playoffs. They've also got a solid perimeter defender in Isaac Okoro. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are a dynamic offensive backcourt where Jrue Holiday can only guard one of those two guys, so the other one might have a lot of success. I think they're well set up to give the Bucks some problems, but I do believe that the depth is a big problem because the Bucks are very, very deep, while the Cavs are pretty shallow for the most part. They've got enough to field a pretty solid playoff rotation, but as you get to the bottom, it gets weaker and weaker, while the Bucks, I feel like, have a really solid rotation through and through. I also think that just Giannis, Mobley and Allen can do a good job of slowing him, but he's got a variety of shooters to kick out to with Jrue, with Giannis, with Brook Lopez, the rest of the guys on the roster as well. I think Jay Crowder, too, is a really solid addition for this playoff run. And ultimately, I am going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they're the better team. They've got the best player in this series in Giannis Antetokounmpo. They've got more experience. This Cavs team is newly assembled and very, very young. I don't see them taking down this powerhouse Bucks team in their first playoff series. I'm going to go Milwaukee in 6. I think this Cavs team can and will take a couple games from the Bucks, particularly when they go to Cleveland, where they've been amazing all season. But ultimately, the depth and the star power of the Bucks just overpowers them, in addition to the experience. And finally, we have Philly versus Boston, which is going to be the most toxic series out of any of these, because these two teams, every time they face off against each other, it feels like the fan bases despise each other. Boston, for the most part, has had Philly's number over the years, but I do think that this is a different Philly team and one that is better than any we've seen in years past. The problem is, so is this Boston team. They were top 2 in offense and defense. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both all NBA players. Tatum will probably be all NBA first team, while Brown will be second or third team. They've got high-level defenders across the roster, probably the best and deepest 8-man rotation in the entire league. I can't speak enough about how good this Boston team is, and ultimately, as much as I do like this Sixers squad, I also worry about Doc Rivers being their head coach and their durability issues. I mean, James Harden is already dealing with an Achilles thing coming into the playoffs themselves. Will Joel Embiid suffer some kind of injury in that first round series, one that could be very physical, going up against a Brooklyn Nets team with nothing to lose? I do worry about that, and I'm going to act as if everything's healthy, but I can't lie that it's not a bit of a concern when picking this game. And ultimately, I think I am going to go with Boston in 7 games. Game 7 between these two teams would be peak hoops, but ultimately, I do think Boston gets it done to set up this rematch of the second round last year in the East. And over in the Western Conference, we have the Phoenix Suns versus the Golden State Warriors, a Western Conference Finals that many people thought we would get last year before Phoenix got ultimately humiliated in Game 7 by the Dallas Mavericks. So, 2 really fun conference finals, 2 that I would love to see, and ultimately, I think both of them could go either way. And of course, we're going to go ahead and begin with Phoenix versus Golden State, which has so many fun narratives going into it. In particular, the angle of Kevin Durant facing his old team in the Golden State Warriors. The squad that he decided, I don't need them anymore, I'm going to go to Brooklyn. They then proved that, hey, we don't need you actually, and won a title last year, while KD now in Phoenix has a chance to prove, hey, I didn't need y'all either, I can win a ring outside of Golden State. There's a lot of fun narratives going into this one. Steph Curry versus Chris Paul, 2 of the best point guards of all time. You've got Devin Booker as well. He's got a bit of a beef with Klay Thompson, it seems like. There's a lot of fun things on this roster. Draymond Green and Kevin Durant have had their issues over time, although it seems like for the most part those are resolved. I think this one would get NBA Twitter buzzing. It would be an amazing series with great hoops. But ultimately, I think there's one big issue that I think leans it in one team's favor, and that is Golden State's defense. Now, I do believe, like I mentioned earlier, with Andrew Wiggins and Gary Payton II, it's going to be better than it was in the regular season, but I still don't think it's going to be locked down. And when you do face this Phoenix Suns team, I just think they have too much firepower for this Golden State Warriors team, and ultimately, I think they have decent enough defense to keep up with the Warriors for the most part. The Warriors definitely have more experience as a whole, but Kevin Durant himself has won a couple of finals. Chris Paul went to one, Devin Booker went to one, DeAndre Ayton went to one, Monty Williams has been there and done that. I think they've learned from last year's failures from that finals run. I think ultimately they get back to the finals, making it out of the Western Conference this year, ultimately taking down the Golden State Warriors. And, let's just go with it again. 7 games. I'm going to stick with that theme of there being a lot of 7-game series. And the Phoenix Suns represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. They are the favorites, so it's nothing like a big surprise. But this is now the second year in a row where I picked them, and hopefully they do better this year than they did last year when they absolutely let me down. Now, in the Eastern Conference, we've got Milwaukee versus Boston. I think most people would agree that these are the best 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be a bloodbath. Like I mentioned, Boston is a top 2 team in both categories, but they've been a bit inconsistent over the course of the year. Last year, they faced each other, and the Bucks pushed them to 7 games without Chris Middleton, which does show a little bit of maybe in the Bucks' favor, that maybe if they had Chris, they would have won last year, so they could win again this year. But at the same time, these 2 teams are different from where they were last season. I think both squads got better. Of course, now Joe Mazzulla is the head coach of the Celtics rather than Ime Udoka, which is also a big change. But ultimately, I'm going to pick Milwaukee here. I'm going to pick Milwaukee to win in 7 games, again, a 7-game series. I'm picking too many 7-game series. There aren't going to be this many, but this is just how close I believe so many of these teams are. I think Boston can absolutely get it done. Part of the reason why I didn't record this video like 45 minutes ago is because I have battled so much back and forth on who's going to win Milwaukee versus Boston. I think Boston is slightly deeper, but ultimately I think Milwaukee just has the best player in the series in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's part of the way that I lean. In a series that is so evenly matched like this, they've also got the championship pedigree, and I do know that the Celtics went to the finals last year. I think there's a very good chance that they're representing the Eastern Conference again this season, but ultimately I don't want to pick against Giannis and this Bucks team that is currently looking to make their second finals run in the past few years. I'm going to pick the Bucks to win in 7 games, which sets up a Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks NBA Finals matchup, a rematch of a couple of years ago, which was an incredible NBA Finals. I mean, Giannis had 50 in a closeout game. There was that clutch steal of Jrue Holiday on Devin Booker. But this time, the Suns have reinforcements in the form of Kevin Durant, who certainly makes things a lot more difficult. Despite this, though, I still think the Bucks are the better team. Yeah, sure, if you look at it like a couple years ago, the Suns lost in 6 games and now they had Kevin Durant, so theoretically they should probably win, but this Bucks team is better. They're more seasoned. They've now had that NBA Finals experience. I think ultimately, this Milwaukee Bucks team, the continuity that they have, the depth, the offense, the defense, I think everything comes together for them in this moment. Chris Middleton, after being up and down this season, puts it all together for this run, and I'm going to take the Milwaukee Bucks to win this year's NBA Finals. And once again, why not go for it? 7 games. So, this is my NBA Finals pick. This is my bracket. I'll go ahead and look back through it for a second so you can go ahead and see. I have to scroll over here a little bit to make sure that y'all could see it. I have to be logged in to make my picks. I don't need to save them. But yeah, this is what we've got going on here. This is my ultimate bracket, as you can see here. And then, of course, the finals pick is, if I go ahead and scroll back over one more time, it is Phoenix versus Milwaukee, which I think, once again, would be an amazing finals. Kevin Durant versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jrue Holiday, once again, against Devin Booker and Chris Paul and Chris Middleton in the fold. Brook Lopez is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Great shooters. I do not want to log into NBA.com right now, please. Yeah, these are my finals predictions. Let me know who you have winning the finals in the comments below, as well as your finals MVP pick. Mine, of course, is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think him and the Milwaukee Bucks get it done. Kevin Durant and the Suns lose the finals in their first year as a squad, but ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if they're back next year. They've got a lot of time to make some changes too. I just think the Bucks are the best team in the NBA right now. I'm going to go ahead and pick them. And Giannis being the best player in the world, I don't want to bet against him either. So, these are my playoff picks. Like I said, please let me know who you have winning down below. I appreciate y'all watching. I hope the playoffs are as good as I'm picking them to be. I picked like 57 game series in this video. There won't be that many, but ultimately, most of this bracket will be wrong anyways, so let me know how I'm wrong down below. I do not want to log in to save my picks. I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, stay back.